Praise the Lord, my beautiful blessed souls. This word might be kind of lengthy. Bear with me. We are in the book of Ruth, and everyone knows about Ruth and Boaz and Ruth. But Ruth is a mixture story. It's a love story, it's a redemption story, it's a bunch of things, but it's a small book. It's only 4 chapters in Ruth. So we're going to get into it, but there's a powerful impact with this story. Now, we always hear about the Ruth and Boaz, but we don't know what all of it is about. So we're going to break this down. We are in Ruth chapter 1. And we are going to go through this. Today is June 16th, and it talks about God's care. And this has a lot to do because, as we can see, God is going to care for these women. He's going to care for Israel, as he always does, in spite of them and whatever they're doing. So we're going to read into it. This is June 16th. What is Monday? Yeah. Monday? No, Tuesday. I'm sorry. I think today is Tuesday. Yeah. So now it says God's care. With the whole universe to run, how can God watch over me so closely? And we all wonder that, because I'll be like, but God watches over you because he is all-knowing, present everywhere. Jesus also promised that when he ascended to heaven, the Holy Spirit come and dwell in all believers forever. The Almighty God created you. He loves you, sustains you, and even knows the numbers of hairs on your head. So if he promises to watch over you, you can trust that he is with you right now. So now Luke 24:49, I will send the Holy Spirit just as my Father promised. Matthew 10:29 through 31. Not even a sparrow worth only half of a penny can fall to the ground without your Father knowing it. You are more valuable to him than a whole flock of sparrows. John 14:16 through 18. I will ask the Father, and he will give you another counselor who will never leave you. No, I will not abandon you as orphans. I will come to you. That was in John after he ascended. Remember, he sent the Comforter, the Holy Spirit. Then Psalms 121, 3 through 4. He will not let you stumble and fall. The one who watches over you will not sleep. Indeed, he who watches over Israel never tires and never sleeps. So we're going to look at that, and that is a beautiful word, because this is why we know he fights our battles, even the ones we do not see, do not know about. He's taking care of us in spite of us, whether we acknowledge him or not, whether we're obedient, whether we follow all the rules, whether we love him, whether we acknowledge him, whether we worship him, follow him, obey him or not. The religious practices, they're wonderful. Everything is wonderful. But please understand God is who he is. And this is what I'm learning within my own walk, that, you know, in spite of us, he is who he is. And this is why we have to be thankful and grateful, because of him not being what we think he is in terms of our own selves and our own fathers and mothers. Because we can, you know, look at it, but it's not the same because he's God. So let's get into this. So now, Ruth chapter 1. In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and a man of Bethlehem in Judah went to sojourn in the country of Moab. Now, see, this was a problem because remember, they had issues with Moab, the Moabites, in past chapters. So this is not good, and they were one of those that practiced adultery. So he and his wife and his 2 sons, the name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife was Naomi. So we're going to look at this, Elimelech and Naomi. And the names of the 2 sons was Mahlon and Chilion, and they were Ephrathites. So they must be from Ephraim's. Now from Bethlehem and Judah, they went into the country of Moab and remained there. But Elimelech, the husband of Naomi, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. So these 2 sons took Moabite wives, which they weren't supposed to do. And the name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other was Ruth. And they lived there about 10 years, and both Mahlon and Chilion died also, so that the woman was left without her sons and her husband. So it's just the 3 women now, right? And we're going to look at this completely because I wanted to know about, hold on. Yeah, because technically speaking, we're going to see where Ruth came from. Ruth is actually a Moabite. And so technically speaking, she was supposed to be able to marry Boaz. But we're going to get into it because it's going to be good. So what happened was, then what she did was she arose. Naomi, she arose with her daughters-in-laws to return to the country from the country of Moab. So she was going to go back home, right? So For she had heard in the fields of Moab that the Lord had visited his people and given them food. So we're going to get into that. So now they're being blessed in that area. So she set out from the place where she was with her two daughters-in-law, and they went on their way to return to the land of Judah. So they were going back to Judah from Moab. But Naomi said to her two daughters-in-law, go return each of you to your mother's house. May the Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me. Meaning because they left their gods, they left their families to go live with them and serve other gods. So, right. So may the Lord grant that you may find rest, each of you in the house of her husband. Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voices and wept. And they said to her, no, we will return with you to your people. But Naomi said, turn back, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Have I yet sons in my womb that they may become your husbands? So that's right. That's another thing. So turn back, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. I should say I have hope, even if I should have a husband this night and should bear sons. Will you therefore wait till they were grown, meaning to marry them? Or would you therefore refrain from marrying? No, my daughters, for it's exceedingly bitter to me for your sake that the hand of the Lord has gone out against me. We're going to talk about that. Then they lifted up their voices and wept again, and Orpah kissed the mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. So Orpah's going to go back to her mother's. Why? Because remember, at this time, their whole lives is based around husbands and children, and we're going to get into that too. So Ruth has stayed and Orpah went back. And she said, see, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Remember, because they didn't worship what they weren't supposed to. So, and they weren't even supposed to be there. We're going to get to that. Return after your sister-in-law, meaning like she did. But Ruth said, do not urge me to leave you or to return from following you. For where you go, I will go. Now, that's loyalty. That's a lot to take care of, to stick together in the times of need. And we're going to talk about that too, especially as women and them being in the same position, old or young alike, knowing that they need to be cared for. And if there's no one there, at least they would work together and care for each other. That means a lot. But you are not, listen here, we're going to get a lot of that does not go on. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. So may the Lord do to me, and more also, if anything but death parts me from you. That is loyalty. And when Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more. Why? Because Naomi's an older woman now, right? So she's by herself. Her boys are gone. And so you just leave her out there. So let's get into it. So the two of them went on until they came to Bethlehem. And when they came to Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them. And the woman said, is this Naomi? Right? And she said to them, do not call me Naomi. Call me Mara. For the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. I went away full, and the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi when the Lord has testified against me and the Almighty has brought calamity upon me? So Naomi returned, and Ruth, the mother of Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, with her, who returned from their country of Moab, and they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest. So they're back in Bethlehem. Now we're going to get into this. Now, it is a time when judges and the Israelites live in a volatile cycle of their own making. Remember that. These are times of peace that are followed by a loss of zeal for God and a turn to back to pagan gods. So, this is the back and forth period where they're with God, but they're not, and they're back and forth because their loyalty is, whenever he's good to them, they're staying, and whenever he's not or things is going on, they move forward. And this is what this is about, especially with Ruth. So God responds to famine and conquering enemies. They mean letting them be conquered by the enemies. Exactly. Their own hands, their disobedience. So when the people reach their limit of suffering, they cry out in repentance and beg for mercy. Again, this is repeated cycles we go through. God sends a judge like Deborah, Gideon, and Samson to beat back the conquerors and return the rebel hearts to their God. But with peace brings complacency, and the people have short memories. So once things get good, here we go back to the same old thing. Back to leaving God for what? These other gods. Just as you see, Naomi stuck. Ruth stuck with Naomi. But the other girl, Orpah, she went back. She just said, never mind, because this is too much for her. So she went back to worshiping the other gods and back with her family. So now, let's get into it. Elimelech, his wife, Naomi, and their sons, Mahlon and Chilion, found themselves in a season of judgment. The territory of Judah around Bethlehem is in such a severe famine, the family flees to Moab. This was a nation founded by man, conceived through an incestuous relationship. Remember, between Lot and his daughters, and we got to get and talk about that too. Because remember, when they left, I believe they had sex with their father when they left Sodom and Gomorrah. So when that was done, they went and they started their own stuff. So this is how that was. So we're going to go ahead. Okay. So Moab was the culture which hired a prophet, remember, to curse the non-threatened Israelites, which was that this is the history. When that failed, Moab sent its women to seduce the men into adultery and idolatry. Remember that part. Elimelech and Naomi's time in Moab is no kinder. Within 10 years, Elimelech, Mahlon, and Chilion are all dead. Those are her husband and both of her sons. And Naomi is left with 2 Moabite daughters-in-laws. Now, see, that is calamity, because for you to lose your husband, but also both of your children, and then have no grandchildren, and all your women are left. Remember, these times it was always, the men. And when there was no men, and it's still the same way now, even though we don't emphasize it, because God does. When the men are not there, there's a bunch of calamity. Why? Because this is what's going on. The women are left to struggle. They're on their own. They're by themselves. They don't even have children in this sense. So there's not even that factor. They're just alone. And we're going to look at it, because it seems like the women in our roles, we need to know, which we understand, is to have children, okay, and to have husbands. Have husbands and have children. The husband is the caretaker of the family, and we're, the provider and protector. We're the nurturers, and this is where this goes to continue to blah, blah. Now, meanwhile, God has blessed Bethlehem again. So we're going to look into that, because I believe they had a famine. And that was the reason why they left. So they left because God cursed it, and it was famine, and then they went to the Moabs. So we're going to get into that, because that was the people they weren't supposed to deal with. So meanwhile, God has blessed Bethlehem again, so now she wants to return, right? Naomi hears the famine is over, so she would rather live out her heartbroken and destitute days among her own people than in Moab. So she plans to return home. Why? Because she left there when it was in famine, but now that they're doing plentiful, she's going back. She left God and went to the Moabs, right? She wasn't supposed to do. Her daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth, insist on coming with her, showing a level of love and faithfulness uncommon even in Israel. So Naomi cannot bear it. She can give the 2 women nothing in Israel. In Moab, at least they'll have a chance to find a new husband and new lives. Why? Because they weren't supposed to marry them. So this is, Oprah reluctantly agrees and returns home. Ruth refuses to leave Naomi's side. Now, Naomi tries to persuade her stubborn daughter-in-law, but Ruth will have none of it. And that's good, because she had someone there. They both were alone, so at least they could take care of each other. Naomi is her family. So the Israelites must be her people, and the Israelite God must be her God. And that lets us know, too, she really left those Moabite gods and idolatry and didn't go back to them. She stayed with the God that they worship. Why? Because this makes a lot of sense. So despite Naomi's inconsolable bitterness, Ruth sees something in her that makes leaving everything behind an easy decision. Only their deaths will separate them. I mean, they didn't have anything or anybody else. So, but God, right? So when the women reach Bethlehem, Naomi's old friends are delighted to see her. Of course they're not. Naomi cannot reciprocate. She left them empty, meaning of food, but full of family. So remember, that is a big difference, because you can have a whole lot of things, but if you don't have your family, it means it's a lot, because having things and I tell people, making it in life is one thing, but you're not making it if your family is not with you. So hello, somebody, help me with that. Right. Being the one that making it on top by yourself means nothing if your family is still destitute. Anyway, let's get to it. She returns empty of everything. That matters. Exactly. She insists that the women call her Mara, or bitterness, as she sees, it in her eyes. No one whom God has cursed should be called pleasant, because that was her name. Naomi meant. So the skilled narrator ends the chapter with a hint of things to come. The famine is over and the barley is ripe. It's time for the harvest. You know what that means. Blessings are flowing. Ruth will use, because famine's over. That's drought. That's, the bitter seasons. Like winter. Ruth will use this to her advantage as she goes to a field and requests permission to scavenge after the harvesters are done with their work. So it so happens that the landowner, Boaz, is one of Elimelech's kinsmen, redeemers, who is obligated to buy Elimelech's land, which will give Naomi a living. Yet Naomi has grander plans. If Boaz can give the money to live on, why can't he give her an heir and provide security for her and Ruth as well? So we are going to look into this because, honey, this is going to get interesting. Now, in this chapter, we have Naomi's afflictions, meaning as a distressed housekeeper forced by famine to remove into the land of Moab. Now, as a mournful widow and mother bewailing the death of her husband and her two sons, as a careful mother-in-law desirous to be kind to her two daughters, to let them go and live their lives, exactly, because, what can she do for them, really? But as a loss, how to be so when she returns to her own country. Orpha, she parts with sorrow, but Ruth, she takes with her in fear, right? As a poor woman sent back to the place of her first settlement to be supported by the kindness of her friends, all these things were melancholy and seemed against her, and yet all were working for good. God was working things out. So let's get into this because this was a lot. I was like, okay, here we go. So now, okay. We're going to get into a bunch of this stuff because it's going to be a lot. I want to break it down. I want to get all the way into it because remember, Ruth and Boaz were supposed to be able to be married in the first place because Ruth is a Moabite. So when we look at the story and they were not supposed to marry and she went back knowing that they weren't really supposed to be able to marry her, this was one of the reasons why I was looking at the story and I was like, okay, so it has a lot of background, which a lot of times they don't really talk about. So we're going to discuss it because I want to get into it. Now, give me time because I have to go back and so much information. Wait a minute. Okay, let me go back because I think I passed it. Yeah. Okay. Let me go back to where it was. Hold on. Okay, so here we go. Ruth chapter 1. So now we're going to look at this. Ruth chapter 1, generational, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually. We're going to look at all of these things, the trauma, all of what's going on with them. And we're going to look at Ruth chapter 1, full breakdown, when God begins redemption in the middle of loss. And I can really look at my life and see it in this story because I feel the same way. Now, Ruth 1, the healing counter story to Judges 19 through 21, right? Where Judah ends in violence, Ruth begins in famine, grief, and female suffering. Isn't that something? Like I said, it's a bittersweet, but moves towards loyalty, covenant, and restoration. So God has a plan. This chapter is the reset and the soft whisper, the gentle beginning of God rebuilding what sin destroyed. Remember, that's what they were trying to do before. Fix sin, fix what sin created. So, and we do that. Core summary, what happened, right? A famine hits Bethlehem during the days of the judges. I was wondering, that's what happened. So the famine is what sent them to Moab. But remember, Moab is like their enemy. They're part of the Canaanites, the Moabites, and they had issues with them. So Elimelech, the husband, Naomi's husband, took her and the two sons to a spiritually hostile land. And this is what happens. This is why we cannot move and go places without God, especially leaving God behind because God was not in this. Elimelech dies. And I was wondering, why did he die? Who died first? All this. So we're going to get into it. The sons married Moabite women, Orpah and Ruth. See, they married. They weren't supposed to do that. After 10 years, both sons died. Woo. Naomi hears God has visited Bethlehem with food and decides to return. Remember, because at that time, they were up under famine and judgment. So now that God is blessing them, she wants to go back to God and go back to where she was. So this is what folks do. We leave God, we leave whoever, and we come back when they're doing well. But when they're going through it, we don't want to be bothered. This is a problem. Loyalty is issues here. I see it. There's no loyalty. There's just opportunity. She urges her daughters-in-law to stay in Moab. Orpah leaves and goes back, right, to her family, and stay Moabite and go back to worshiping the Moabite gods. And Ruth clings to Naomi and makes a covenant vow to stay with her. Naomi returns to Bethlehem bitter, empty, and grieving. They arrive at the beginning of the barley harvest, which is a hint of hope, meaning there's hope. This is a place where stuff is growing, it's blooming now, things are moving, which is a great thing, don't get me wrong, because I myself have moved several places, and we got to be careful and get it right. So, characters in their spiritual profiles. Naomi, she's the grieving matriarch. Her name means pleasant, but she renames herself Mara, meaning bitter. Why? Because look at what all she's going through. She interprets her suffering through the lens of God's sovereignty. She is emotionally honest. Yes, she's spiritually wounded, but still moving toward God. So, although all of this is going on, she sees it. She understands what's going on. She's not happy. She knows she has to repent about it. But listen, nonetheless, she's still going to go towards God instead of away from God. And that's what we have to do. She represents a woman who had lost everything but still walked toward God and his presence instead of away from him. So now Ruth, the loyal outsider. She's a Moabite woman, and in a nation, she's born from incest, right? Because that's what that was about. Lot and his daughters, were in Sodom and Gomorrah. And when they ran out of there, they went and they started sleeping with the daughters, had sex with Lot, his own daughters, and they created these nations. So this is what they believe in: incest. So she chooses Naomi's God over her own God and people and gods, which is a beautiful thing. Her vow is covenant level, not emotional. So this is, a difference. This represents the gentle bride, the faithful remnant, and the woman who chooses God in the dark. So this is why Ruth is different. This is why she's mentioned. This is why all of this is going on, because, a lot of women names are not mentioned. A lot of them, their stories or, whatever. So when God puts a highlight on these things, it's for a reason. So now Orpah, the logical one, she loves Naomi, right? But she returns people and her gods. She represents the person who chooses comfort over covenant. Why? Because it didn't matter what was going on. She knew that it was going to be difficult. So she was like, listen, I'm abandoning ship. I'm jumping. I'm leaving y'all. I'm going back over here because I don't know what you chicks is doing. But me personally, I'm not about to be trying to figure out if I'm going to have some or not. I can go back home, be with my people, and do what I do, right? So now... Elimelech, the man, the father, the husband, who left the promised land. His name means God is king, but he lived as if God wasn't. This is why. He represents people who choose decisions that contradict their confession. So meaning he was living a life, so he claimed for the Lord, but he wasn't. Why? Because he obviously, when judgment came and fell, he left. Meaning, well, whatever happened with the famine, or God allowed things to happen, the suffering, he left God. And a lot of times we do that, or we do it in different areas in our lives. We may be worshiping God properly in one area sometimes and not in others. We have to pay attention to this. So when it gets rough and it gets hard, we leave God and we go back to the other gods. Or when he makes things better for us, then we leave and go. So locations and their meaning. Bethlehem means house of bread, but ironically, it was a famine during this time. And remember, that was because of judgment. They were worshiping those other gods. That was why. This symbolizes God's provision even when it looks empty. So a lot of times it does look empty. God will allow that time frame in your life where he's working, but we won't see what's going on. And we'll think it's empty. We'll think it's drought, us and other people. And this is the time when they will walk away. But God is always working. So the birthplace of David and Jesus' redemption begins here. Now, I always tell people, you can't be with me when I'm going through it. Don't come around me when I make it, because I don't even want to hear it. Go on about your business, lay the pieces and all that. Moab, in the land of compromise, a place Israel was forbidden to a place where Israel was forbidden to seek help from. See. So when we look at Moab, it specifically says Moab was the land of compromise. It's a place where Israel was forbidden to seek help from. Now, God will put that on you, and he will make it so that will be the way. Where people he don't want to help you will not help you. And if that's his way, that's the way it will be. Because remember, he changes their hearts. He can help soften the heart and people's hearts towards you. So depending on what's going on, and I've learned this myself, because a lot of time help was not there or wasn't. And I'm like, why? Because God had a purpose for that. He wanted to do it. He didn't want them to get the credit for it. He knew their hearts towards me, the way they thought about me, and all these other things. And this is why. So it symbolizes leaving God's covering for survival. So we leave God's covering because stuff is going on. He's doing some things. He's allowing some stuff to happen. The consequences we're reaping. And instead of staying and just getting our whooping and getting what we need to get out of it, whatever it is, getting chastised, we want to leave. We want to go somewhere else. But the protection is not there. We're leaving God's will. So a lot of times we think moving somewhere else where it's better is God's will. Sometimes staying where you are and going through the hardship is God's will for your life. We may not like it, but this is what this is. You see what I'm talking about. It represents spiritual drift. This is trauma, decisions, and compromise. So this is what happened. The road back to Bethlehem. It symbolizes repentance, return, and restoration. So theologically, themes, we're going to look at it. The famine was as a judgment and as mercy. Why? To bring them back. It's the rod of correction. To allow them to suffer for a while so they can get their minds right, so that eventually they can see the error of their ways and come back to God. Booyah. Don't let that go over your head. So now the famine was connected even for the kids and the children and all that. Don't let that go over your head. The famine was connected to Israel's disobedience during the judges' era. This is why he allowed the famine. But famine also became the doorway to Ruth's redemption story. So God uses lack, loss, and emptiness to set up restoration. So he's always doing something. We don't know what, but he's doing something even in that. That's why he said all things work together for the good of them that love the Lord. That's the good and the bad. So God's sovereignty and human choices. Elimelech moves to Moab was a misguided. It was. But God used it to bring Ruth, a Moabite, into the Messianic line. Now, this is what I was looking for. I said, ooh, because how? Because remember, Ruth is going to be an ancestor of David, which is the line of who? Jesus. So we're going to get into it. Now, God can redeem. One, wrong decisions. He can redeem it. Painful seasons, cultural barriers, and family tragedy. When it means redeem, he can redeem it, he can restore it, he can bring it back, he can make it better than what it was. This is what we talk about when we talk about justice, righteous judgments, and vindications. Why? Because when you're praying those prayers, you're asking God to fix all of the things that were wrong and make them right. To redeem it, to bring it back, to give you back all of the seasons that was lost in your life. And God can do it. And this is how he does it when he gets ready. He may bring all of those seasons back in one great season, and then that will be you see what I'm saying? That's your healing, deliverance, restoration season. So you go through the healing. That is the turmoil of digging up all that old ground, all the bitterness, the anger, the pain, getting all those weeds out. Why? He's going to replant you. You're going to be isolated. Then you're going to go into the ground, you're going to die, and you come out. You're going to be healed. You're going to be delivered. And then he's going to restore. Bring back everything that was taken, stolen. And then usually it's 7 times more than what was taken. So this is where the double for your trouble come in your life. Right. So all the things that the enemy thought they took and want to destroy you with, God is going to use it to bless you with thoroughly. That's where that table that he prepares for you in the presence of your enemies, because they're going to watch you eat. Loyalty as a covenant. This is what this is all about. Because when people are loyal to God, loyal to each other in these bad seasons, then the blessing comes in the good season. And see, usually the ones who leave you in the bad season, they want to be the ones that come back around in the good season. No. It don't work like that. So loyalty as a covenant. Ruth's vow is one of the strongest covenant statements in scripture. Your people will be my people and your God my God. This is what changed everything for her. Because as a Moabite, she switched. She left her God for the one true God, and truly. So Elimelech, he was one of them. He was Israelite, but he left God, and he left them in the natural and in the spiritual and went over there. But she did the opposite. So this is why God blessed Ruth. This is why. So we got to pay attention to what is going on. This is not emotion. It is a conversion. So God can use those Canaanite people. He can use the Gentiles. He can use those ones who's robbed, steal, kill, destroy. Those are the ones he would come, the ones on drugs, the ones who went through the most, the ones you think lives ain't going to be about nothing. You think you're so much better than them. This is the ones he used. And then he switches it all around to let you see that what you thought it was, it wasn't. Honest lament is not unbelief. So honest lament is not unbelief. Naomi says, the Almighty has dealt bitterly with me. She said, I went away full, but the Lord brought me back empty. And we can honestly lament to the Lord. Please do that, because be honest with him. Don't lie. Be honest with him. Know yourself where you are in your walk, and know, with yourself, others, God, whatever. Listen, she is not rejecting God. She is processing the pain in God's presence. She's letting him know, how she feels. He already know. But the fact that she's going to come and bring it to him and discuss it with him and let him know, it says a lot, because that's intimacy. That's relationship. Okay. It's not always going to be cute. It's not always going to be pretty. It's not always going to be Maybelline. I woke up like this, flawless. No, people think that. That's not, no. That's the fake. The real is this type of stuff right here. And this is what we need to get to, because love and all this infatuation, people think it's wonderful. No, sometimes it's ugly. It's ugly, okay? And it's how you're going to deal with the ugly. Generational and lineage patterns. Famine, departure, death, return, and redemption. This is the prophetic pattern of Ruth. This is our story when it comes to sin. Women carry the story forward, and Judges, women suffer because of male sin, right? Because he's the male. He took them there. He is the leader. He's the priest, and they have to do what he says. So it's not that they wanted to go. They went because they had no choice, because their husband told them to go. So now he's sleeping around, and what we going to the side chick house? Don't let that go over your head. In Ruth, women become the vessels of redemption. Why? Because they want to lead. But where you lead me to? The next chick house? The side chick? Okay. Lead me where we need to be going, and not to that foolishness there, because God ain't told you to lead like that. Thank you. Don't let that go over your head either. Now, God uses outside to heal inside of brokenness. Won't he do it? Won't he send the outside people when folks think you need them, gotta kiss they butt, they want you beneath them, honey? God will send a ram in the bush every time. He will send outside people you do not know. Those will be the ones to like, share, comment, subscribe, root you on, do all that you need, and help you. And the ones that know you will sit there and will not, and will want you to help them with everything they got going on, and will never want to do nothing when it comes to you. And this is the problem. So, Ruth, a Moabite, becomes the grandmother of King David. Yes, part of the Jesus lineage. God uses this unexpectedly to restore the broken. Now, this is, that right there said a mouthful, because, Jesus. Therapy style. We're going to look at this when it comes to the traumatization, because this is a lot. And we have to look at it because, of course, we cannot sit here and not look at the therapeutic ramifications of what is going on with these people's lives. We have to know the who, what, when, where, why, and how of their story. Why is this way? How did they get here? Where did they come from? All of these things. So Naomi, she was a traumatized survivor. Symptoms: she had grief, she had bitterness. I'm quite sure she did. Lost her husband and her children. And then didn't have any grandchildren. No way of being taking care of herself. Then she has these two daughter-in-laws that she may love, but she can't do nothing for them either, because she's not a male. So now there's bitterness. Then there's identity loss. Then there's spiritual confusion. And then there's emotional exhaustion and confusion as well. But she still moves forward toward God's people. This is what she does. Now, Ruth, the securely attached one, her symptoms is loyalty. She has loyalty, commitment, identity shifts. She has a bunch of courage. She's emotionally resilient, and she chooses covenant over comfort. No matter what goes on, we're going to go through this together. Why? Because, listen, I'm going to serve your God. I loved your husband, your son. I'm here with you. I'm not just going to abandon you. We were a family. Everything's gone. We got to go through this together. Don't just jump ship now and leave, because when everything was good, it was good. Now I'm going to jump ship and just leave you. I was being taken care of. I was being loved by you and your family. And now that stuff has happened, I'm just going to leave and go back to my people. No, I'm going to stay here with you. I'm going to love you like you love me. And we're going to get through this together. Now, this is what that says to me. But folks will jump ship on you, baby, like Orpha did now. Orpha, the avoidant attachment. Her symptoms were love without sacrifice. This is what this is. People want love, so they claim, but that's not love. Sometimes you have to, in love, you're going to sacrifice. There's no being in love without it. That's infatuation. That's surface level. Emotion without covenant. Tears without transformation. She chooses the familiar over the faithful. This is what happens. And then you run to the ones who you think love you, and then they don't. And you find out the ones that did, you messed up over them because you went through a hiccup that could have been, it was a small thing. You go through these little small battles and you create a war out of it. And instead of keeping mindful of that you're going to go through things, keeping these small battles under wraps. Why? Because it's not the little battles we all trying to win. It's these wars we trying to win. We all trying to have somewhere to go, have food, clothing, shelter. So these little bickering battles about little simple stuff, we don't need to make mountains out of molehills. And this is what this is. Symbolism, harvest as hope. They arrive at the beginning of the barley harvest. This is not a detail. It is a prophecy. Harvest symbolizes new beginnings. Remember that. It means provision. It means restoration. It means God's timing. It means the end of the famine. Right. So now here comes the blessing. God is already preparing Ruth's future before she even knows it. So when you're going through those storms and those famine seasons, understand, I tell people all the time, when you down, only place to go is up. When you are up, you might want to pay attention because your season to come down to be coming around soon. Them tables turn and everyone goes through them. Please pay attention. One season you may be up and the other one may be down. You may be looking down on them like they ain't nothing. But baby, watch out for when them tables and them seasons change. Because honey, you'll be down and they'll be up. But how you treat each other in the meantime, in between time, up, down, in, and out is going to be a lot. So, prophetic and Christological foreshadowing. Ruth equals the gentle bride. She represents the church. Outsiders brought into the covenant, right? So that's the Gentile nations, the ones that we claim is so terrible while folks sit in the pews and just worse off than the ones outside because they think because of religious practices, that's what it's about. But we just talked about it. God doesn't look at religion and religious practices now. You got to pay attention. Boaz introduced in chapter 2. But he's the kinsman redeemer. He's a picture of Jesus covering, providing, redeeming, restoring. Won't he do it? He going to cover you. Meaning protect you. Provide for you. Redeem you. And restore you. Holly. Don't you need it? Don't you want it in your life? Yeah, you Boaz, you Boaz. No, Naomi equals Israel. She's bitter, broken, but restored through the Redeemer. That says a lot. Bitter and broken. Oh, Jesus. Bruised, not broken, but bitter sometimes. At times I've been bitter. I've been angry. I've been a lot of things. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I see myself in Naomi. I see myself in Ruth and honey, I see myself depending. Honey, I can see it. I'm not going to see it and tell you I can't see it. Modern application, women, identity, and trauma along with healing. This one says Ruth 1 speaks directly to women who feel abandoned, women who feel empty, women who feel like God has forgotten them. We just talk about how God his care. Sorry. Okay. So women who feel abandoned, women who feel empty, and that's anyone. Women who feel like God has forgotten them, women who are rebuilding after loss, women who choosing God in the dark, women navigating identity shifts, women healing from generational trauma. And this could be men and or women, okay? It's just talking about women right now because it's talking about this situation. But you got to look at it from all angles, okay? So Ruth shows God sees women, God honors women, God uses women, God restores women, and God writes redemption through women. So we talking about women because a lot of times in this world, even to this day, women are counted out. We're considered second-class citizens. We need to stop that. This is the opposite of Judges 19:21. Now, the key takeaways from this is loss is often the doorway to destiny. Gotta look at it like that then. God works even when he feels silent. Loyalty is a spiritual force. Honest lamenting is holy. So crying out to God. God restores through unexpected people. Yes, women are essential to God's redemptive plan. Of course, will be to give his life. His life. The story begins in famine, but it ends in harvest. I like that. So now I had some questions. Okay. We're going to look at this. I wanted to know why Moab, right? I wanted to know why do they go to Moab? Because Moab represents compromise, survival decisions, and generational tension. Now, Moab was Israel's enemy. Remember, a nation born from incest, Lot and his daughters. They had sex and, continued on. A people who hired Balaam to curse Israel. Remember that. And a land where God told Israel not to seek help from. So yet Abimelech took his family there. Why? Because family pressures people into compromise. We're looking at this now because remember, even now with what's going on in this world, we got to pay attention because guess what? With all the beast system and everything, the wars, we know that this time frame is coming. And it's going to be this way where people are going to need each other because there's not going to be a whole lot going on. And if you don't band together to survive, you won't. Coming apart at the seams when things go wrong, that shows weakness. You're supposed to band together at that time and stand 10 toes down. Don't leave and abandon each other the moment stuff gets hard and rough. Because guess what? Stuff is going to get hard and rough for you later on down the line. Do you want people to be there or abandon you? Hello, just letting you know. Now, let that go over your head, baby. Now, when survival is threatened, right? Because all it is, famine puts pressure on people to compromise. So when survival is threatened, what people do, they leave covenant places. Covenants mean wives, children. Yes. Families split up when things pressure, when things come in. Outside people, places, and things that get in the boat and messes it up. Make fear-based decisions. Exactly. Choose the easier options and go where God never sent them. Doesn't that hit a head and a nail on it right there? Please let that just sink in. For men who leave their wives for greener pastures, for children who leave for greener pastures, for people, places, and things who leave for greener pastures. And then later on, come to find out they should have stayed, because all of the time when you're going through don't mean it's a time to leave. Remember, that can be the time of testing. That is the time of to see who's who and what's what. Where is the loyalty then? Now, Moab is a place where you go when you stop trusting God's provision. Having no faith, having no trust, having no hope in God that he's going to make a way. Now, Ruth leaving? No, Naomi leaving to go back was a blessing. She needed to move. She needed to leave that place. It wasn't a place God wanted them to be in the first place. She went there and lost everything. Because Moab represents emotional escape, people go to Moab right when life gets hard. Who do you turn to when life gets hard? When faith feels empty, when God feels distant and provision dries up. Moab is a shortcut that becomes a trap. For children, that's your friends. People, places, and things that get in your ear about your parents and all these other things that ain't going to be there for you. They're going to turn you against your own folks. This is what that's about. Siblings, same thing. At some times. Because siblings could be the worst things. But at times, if you are, functional, you will see that I'm not supposed to hate my sibling. I'm supposed to love and help my sibling. I'm not supposed to hate my mother and father. We may have issues with certain things that we go, yes. But I'm supposed to, and trying to make things work. It may not be the easiest of situations. Because no matter what my parents did, respect, honor, and certain things, you still have to give them because God requires it. No matter if you was the child that was molested and everybody hated, there's still a certain level of respect that I still have to have for my mother and my father, no matter what they did, because God didn't say in the Bible, you only honor them when they are good to you. No, he said honor them. He didn't say whether they were good or not. Pay attention. So now, but you can't make people love you and you can't force people. You can try, and a lot of times this warfare be a pulling of the hearts because one side you love the people and the other side they're destroying you. So it's like you don't know which way to go. You know what I'm saying? This is the war. It's not easy. I'm telling you, it's not. Moab and Israel had a long, painful history. This is Israel and Moab and their relational history, their story. Moab refused Israel food and water in the wilderness. Remember? This was Deuteronomy. Remember? 23, 3-4. So this is the beginning. They were already, giving issues to Israel. No reason. Moab hired Balaam to curse Israel. Remember, that was in Numbers 22, 24. I went through all of this. If you go back, you'll see it because I went through Deuteronomy. I went through Numbers. So we are here all from Genesis all the way to Ruth. This is where we are, chapter by chapter. I've broken it down. If you go back, you will see where I went through these, and we went through just like I'm going through this one. That's why I said go back and look at other videos that I have because it'll show you how we got here. Now, Moab hired Balaam to curse Israel. That was in Numbers 22-24. I remember that. The Moabite women then seduced. He wanted them to seduce Israel into idolatry. Numbers 25, they did that. God forbade the Moabites from entering the assembly for 10 generations. Deuteronomy 23:3. This is why when it came to Ruth and Boaz, this story is not just this is why God put it up there for us to see. It's only 4 chapters, but it's powerful. Moab oppressed Israel during the Judges era. Remember, these are the same people we were just talking about in this last book. So when Abimelech moved his family to Moab, it was what? Spiritually dangerous, historically offensive to God. culturally shameful even to the people, and a side of a spiritual drift. You chose them over me. Woo! That's just like a mama. You chose your friends, your people over me. Oh, Jesus. Woo! You chose them over me. Okay. And God just looking at us like, you chose them. You chose Satan. You chose Satan people. And I told you to stay away from over me. Why did the father, husband, and sons die in that order? I mean, this is not random. Abimelech, he was the father. He dies first. Trying to figure out why. What happened? He is the decision maker, right? He is the one who led the family into Moab. And his death symbolizes what? The collapse of the male leadership. You led us into sin. You led us away from God. How many men can honestly stand here and say that when it comes to the destruction of the families, that they are not the ones at the head leading the family straight to hell? Who, Jesus, into the enemy's hands from adultery and everything else. Please, drinking, smoking, partying, all this. Please. Abandonment, all kind of abuse. Listen here. I'm so over this. The consequences of leaving God's covering. He took them out of God, out of the will of God, to go worship other people, other gods, and be with the people God told them not to, and allowed his sons to marry into. The end of the family's spiritual direction. This is what happened. Malin and Chilin, the sons, they died next. Their names mean, Malin means sickness. Chilin means wasting away. So their death symbolizes maybe there was something going on. They were already sick. Why? It started from the head, from the man. It's his seed. So if the kids are sick, that's his seed, his sick seed. Why? Because there's something going on. Now, their death symbolized the end of the family line. The consequences of marrying outside of covenant. The generational cost of their father's decisions. So the children pays the price for the decisions, remember this, of the parents. And it starts with the father. Let's not be misunderstood. You are the head. Take your rightful place. Naomi survives. Why? Because the story is about redemption through the women, not the men. Why? Because God removes the old structure. He killed them off because where y'all are leading is away from me. You're leading them away from me, out of my protection, out of my love, out of my grace. I created the constructs of family. Why would you take your children to the enemy and want to raise them there? Oh, Jesus. Because the story is about redemption. Now, God removes the old structure, the compromised leadership, the generational sickness, so he can rebuild. Through whom? The women. Naomi, Ruth, and Boaz. Oh, Jesus, when they talk about us women, Lord, we the ones who've been bearing the load, Lord Jesus. We've been putting in the work. Although we do not get they don't give us the what we need to be getting our just dues a lot. But anyway, because they'll sit here and rag and tag us about everything, and we just make it do with what we got, honey. Famine in scripture. We ain't perfect. We got our issues, but we do try to make do. We stand there, we take it. When the men walk off, we take care of the kids. Up, down, in, and out is hard or not. We still stand there, we take care of them kids. They can talk about whatever is going on, but we still take it. We sit there and go through whatever needs to be gone through to take care of them kids. We don't abandon ship because we don't like you, because something went wrong, because some cuter came along with a bigger booty and whatever else. We don't do that. So, out of some weak stuff, simple foolishness. No. National sin. Israel was in the era of the judges. This is a time of idolatry. So they worshiping them other gods. Moabites. Remember, violence, sexual sin, oppression, forgetfulness, forgetting where God brought them from, spiritual drift, not be involved with God. They done left God to go worship these other gods. He was blessing them. He was doing whatever. And this is the problem. Get comfortable. God bless you and you go back. Divine discipline. Famine was God's way of what? Calling the nations back. Breaking complacency, exposing dependence, and resetting priorities. Yeah, you get your mind right when everything you had get taken away. Setting up redemption without famine. Naomi never leaves. Ruth never meets Naomi. Ruth never meets Boaz. David is never born. Jesus' lineage is never established. Famine was the doorway to destiny. God set that thing up. He redeemed it. Everything Abimelech did, he knew it was going to happen, and he had a plan already before it even got to that point. He knew what he was going to do. Why they didn't have any children? Ruth and Orpah were married for 10 years with no children. Now, barrenness is a sign of something's going on. I tell people this all the time, and you see it a lot of times inside of this when God is talking about people, who, didn't have, either they were barren because of, whatever, but it is a sign when you're not fruitful and multiplying, it is a sign that there's some type of curse, some type of something going on, some type of disobedience, something. And it could be inherited. In Hebrew culture, this is meant infertility, is shame, is social stigma, economic vulnerability. Why did God allow it? What? To break Moab's generational line. God did not want Moabite gods producing Moabite heirs in Naomi's family. This is why he didn't allow them to have children. But then, when she gets with Boaz, she's going to have one. You see, ooh, Jesus, ooh, Lord. And then sometimes folks be married, can't have a child, and them sending folks be out there having 1,000,001 child. And listen, we looking at it now. To position Ruth for Boaz. If Ruth had children with Mahlon, she would stay in Moab. Yep, she would not cling to Naomi. She would not enter Bethlehem. She would not meet Boaz, and she would not enter Messianic line. So this is the reason why God didn't allow neither one of them girls to have any children. One, the line. Two, when she left and go over there to produce, she was able to carry a child for Boaz. God opened up the womb. Why? Because that was someone that he was, of the Israelite tribe. They wanted them to create more of godly children, not more of the Moabite, who is Satan's seeds. So, okay. Now, to show that the fruitfulness comes from covenant and not culture, Ruth's womb opens only after she enters what? The land of promise. The covenant community and the covering of Boaz. Ooh, won't he do it? Naomi and the daughters-in-law. We're going to look at them. Naomi is the grieving matriarch, right? We talked about that. Orpah represents the logical one. Ruth represents the covenant loyalty. Now, when we look at these things, Naomi is grieving the matriarch. Why? She lost her land, her husbands, her sons, her identity, her security, and her future. This is why she was bitter. Oh, that will make you bitter. Yeah. Orpah represents the logical choice. She returns to her people, her gods, and her comfort. Ruth represents covenant loyalty. She chooses Naomi, Israel, Yahweh, our one true God, and a new identity, a new future. Ruth is the anti-Moabite. She breaks her own nation's generational curses. Moabite gods and their worship practices. Moab worship Chemosh, the national god associated with child sacrifice. This is another reason why they were barren. Sexual rituals, violence, and war. This is why Moabite religion was sensual, violent, idolatrous, spiritually dangerous, and this is why God warned Israel repeatedly, do not intermarry with them. Now, Mara is what Naomi calls herself when she came back. It means bitterness, calamity, and judgment. Naomi renames herself Mara, meaning bitter, because she interprets her suffering as a divine judgment, right? She feels that God has turned against her. Okay, she feels empty, abandoned, unseen. But here's the truth. Naomi is wrong about God, but right about her pain. God was not punishing her. He was positioning her. So we could look at it, tomato, tomato. It could be one and both in the same, or a mixture of the two at the time. We don't know. Gotta ask God and see what it is. The Lord testifies against me, because on the outside people say it's this thing, and then on the inside God is doing a whole nother thing. We don't really know. People say one thing, but God says another. This is trauma theology. When people are hurting, they interpret loss as punishment, and a lot of times we do. Pain as rejection, yep. Suffering as divine anger. Now, some of it be true and some of it not all the time. It just depends on what's going on. Naomi is speaking from grief, trauma, loss, and confusion. Yes, and this will change the way you to see things. God is not testifying against her. He is preparing to redeem her. So she didn't realize that at that time. Women's lives, meaning tied to their husbands and children. Now, this is what I want to get so deep in. In ancient Israel, women could not own land. They had no legal standing. Women depended on male covering, meaning they had to be married in order to have anything. So, and up until not too long ago, this is the way it was, even in America now and other places. Most of these places you go to, it's about the man, and this is what it is. Now, it's not to say it's not supposed to be that way, but what it is the dynamic of how they're doing it. Widows were economically vulnerable, and childlessness was a social death. Yeah, because you have to have heirs, you have to have, be fruitful, multiply, produce another, continue the bloodline. So Naomi's statement is, I went away full, but the Lord brought me back empty, is not exaggeration. It is her economic, social, emotional, and spiritual reality. I know because I felt that way. I left here 10 years ago and I went to South Carolina and I thought it was building a life, and I did for the most part. But honey, the stuff that went on, and came back home, and it's not the first time I've left New York, I came back home, but the leaving, full, and returning empty. This is an arc of the chapter. Full equals a husband, sons, a future, identity, and security. And a lot of times people think it means money and all this other stuff, but it can mean that, it can mean both. But for the most part, and this is this is where I see mine's being full. Husband, sons, future, family, identity, and security. Empty when she came back, meaning she was a widow. She was childless. Her husband and both of her children were dead. She didn't have any grandchildren. She had, two daughter-in-laws that she couldn't provide or do anything for. She had poverty, she had shame, and she had bitterness. But emptiness is the soil of God's restoration. So, famine, idolatry, complacency, and short memories. You're going to look at this. Israel's cycle in Judges, and in the past, all these books, God blesses them, they forget. They drift, they sin. God disciplines them, meaning famine, destruction, getting into the hands of the enemies. They cry out, God restores. Elimelech's family forgot God's faithfulness, God's provision, God's covenant. So they left the place of promise for the place of compromise. Now, leaving people, places, and things in times of need. Elimelech left Bethlehem when Bethlehem needed faith. Orpah left Naomi when Naomi needed support, but Ruth stayed. This is the contrast. Survival loyalty. Orpah, she was survival. Covenant loyalty is Ruth. I'm going to stick by you no matter what's going on. And this is why in marriages, that's the way it's supposed to be. In sickness and health, death do you part, good times and bad, all of that. But see, if you can't do that, if you can't even be with somebody, when you can watch a woman walk past you and not go cheat, then there's a problem. That's already destroyed. You can forget about that. Ruth's loyalty becomes a doorway too, because there's no loyalty. You have no loyalty to the wife. And if you have no loyalty to your wife, how you want your wife to have loyalty to you? What you're doing is you are shooting your own self in the foot, because you're destroying your own marriage with your own hands. This is why this happens, and we see it over and over again. You think that that's some way to do, be, that's what culture says. No, and God doesn't. He sees it as what it is, adultery. He sees it as what? Not being, you're not bringing blessings to your household. You're bringing curses to your household when you're committing adultery. Curses. That's a covenant. You are violating an oath, a vow, a covenant. You're bringing curses. Period. To you, to your children, to your wife. That's what you're doing. So you're shooting yourself in the foot. I would rather you not even get married and stay single and not fornicate. Don't do all of that, because you're going to bring that about. So Ruth's loyalty becomes a doorway to redemption, restoration, lineage, and the Messiah. Past, present, and future meaning. Past, Moab was generational trauma, compromise, and idolatry. The present is Naomi equals grief, emptiness, and bitterness. Future, Ruth is covenant, redemption, lineage, and the Messiah. Ruth 1 is hinging on between Israel's darkest trauma in Judges and Israel's greatest hope, which is David and Jesus. God begins redemption in the darkest of places. Now, I wanted to look at why Moab and how God's care was hidden in it, right? So, God didn't just, use, adding God's care. It transformed the entire chapter. Why? Because Ruth 1 looks like loss, emptiness, judgment, and abandonment. But underneath every line is God's quiet, steady, protective care. We're going to weave this in, and we're going to show how God's care, like we were talking about, how he was caring for them and in spite of them. Throughout all of this, no matter what decisions they made, whether they was being religious, whether they was going against God, whether they was praying every day or not, God was still working in them. You see what I'm saying? Whether they was running to the church or not, whether they was doing all of this battlefield, and whether they were doing it or not, God was still in it. Moab, famine, death, order, Naomi, the daughter-in-law, we're going to look at it. So God's care in this position. Why Moab and how God's care is hidden in it. Moab was hostile. It was idolatrous. It was sexually immoral, spiritually dangerous. So why did God allow Naomi's family to go there? Because God can protect you even in the wrong place. See, we think that God is just stupid. He just said, no, God been doing this a long time. He already know you partying, you smoking, you drinking, you do fornicating, you cheating on your wife or your husband. Or he already know the baby may not be his or his. Listen, don't get all of this twisted. Don't think you slick, because you're not. You're not slick. Smoking weed, you drinking, listen. We can sit here and play because in some areas we may be saved, in some areas we may be struggling, and we ain't. Listen, let's stop. Because God can protect you even in the wrong place. Moab was the place of compromise. It was the place of survival decisions, the place of generational tension. But it was also the place where Ruth would meet Naomi. Ruth would meet the God of Israel. Ruth would be transformed. Ruth would be positioned for Boaz, and the Messianic line would be preserved. So God cared for Naomi even in Moab. He cared enough to bring Ruth out of it. So we got to pay attention. Israel and Moab's history and God's care in this tension. Moab and Israel had betrayal, curses, seduction, idolatry, and hostility. Yet God chose a Moabite woman to what? Bring heal Naomi, restore Bethlehem, mother Obed, which is going to be her child through Boaz later on down the line. Grandmother of Jesse, who is the great-grandmother of David, who is the entire lineage of Jesus Christ. So this is God's care. I can redeem even the nations you fear. Because we seem to think if we're not doing these things and being the perfect Christian, that God does not love us, he's not there. That's a lie. That's a lie. God is God. In spite of what you do, you can't save you. God has to do that. So the order of deaths and God's care in the loss. Remember, Abimelech dies first. He led the family into Moab. His death removes the source of the compromise, right? God's care, I will not let the wrong covering define the future, your future. He got rid of it. The sons died next. Their marriage to two Moabite women were outside covenant. Their deaths in the Moabite line. Right. God's care was, I will not let generational compromise continue. Naomi survived because the story is about her restoration. God's care, I will keep you alive long enough to see redemption. Bless your heart. The famine and God's care in the lack. Famine was discipline, warning, a wake-up call. It was a spiritual mirror. But famine was also the push that got Naomi to Moab. The push that got Ruth to Naomi, the push that got Naomi back to Bethlehem, and the push that aligned Ruth and Boaz. So God's care was in all of this. I will use famine to move you into destiny. No children and God's care in the emptiness. 10 years, no babies, no heirs, and no future. That looks terrible. But God closed Ruth's womb because he was saving her womb for Boaz. He was protecting the Messianic line. He was preventing Moabite idolatry from mixing with Israel, and he was positioning Ruth for covenant fruitfulness. God's kids, I will not let you produce fruit in the wrong place. Ooh, Jesus. Ooh, that hit hard. That was tough right there. That was tough. Naomi and the daughters-in-law and God's care in their relationships. Naomi lost her husband, her sons, her identity, her security. But God gave her Ruth, loyalty, companionship, covenant love, and a daughter better than 7 sons. Ooh, won't he do it? Won't he restore? God's care, I will send you the right people when the wrong ones leave. Jesus, I need the hallelujah scream on that. Woo! First, let me get rid of these raggedy ones, and I'm going to bring you the ones that you need to be with you. Why? Because I see your pain. I see your hurt. I see your bitterness. I get you, boo. I understand. I love you. You my daughter. Moabite gods and the God's care in spiritual warfare. Moabites worship chemotion, child sacrifice, sexual rituals, violent gods. But Ruth rejected all of it. God's care, because she didn't do what culture told her this is what she was supposed to do. She grew up in worshiping idolatry, worshiping all these other gods. But she decided that that's not, it was wrong. Her heart was to God, the one true God. And she went with him. And that was the best thing she could have ever did. But Ruth rejected all of it. God's care, I will put you out of every false god that tried to claim you. Ooh, Jesus, Mara, bitterness, calamity, judgment, and God's care in honesty. Naomi says, the Almighty has dealt bitterly with me. The Lord has testified against me. The Lord has brought calamity upon me. But God never rebukes her. Why? Because God cares enough to let you be honest. God's care is, I can handle your bitterness. I can handle your honesty. I can handle your pain. Naomi thinks God is against her, but God is actually working for her. Ooh, Jesus, because sometimes I be feeling like, yes, everybody, including God. Lord, where you at when all this is going on? You just left me out here to just suffer. Oh, Lord, come and help a nigga. Come help a chick. I need you. Women's lives ties to husbands, children and God's care and identity. Now, in culture, women had no legal rights. They had no land, remember, no income, no inheritance, and no protection. But God protects Naomi, provides for Ruth, gives Ruth a redeemer, gives Naomi a grandson, restores their identity, restores their security, restores their future. God's care is your identity is not tied to a man, it is tied to me. Won't he do it? For the people in the back, who Jesus is not tied to any man, people, place, or thing. It is tied to me. Who Jesus? I got to scream and shout for that one. Leaving full, returning empty, and God's care in the return. Naomi says, I went away full, but the Lord brought me back empty. But God brought her back at harvest time. That means he gonna do something with Ruth to Bethlehem, to Boaz, to redemption. God's kids, I bring you back empty so I can fill you with something better. Ooh, Jesus. Won't he do it? Famine, idolatry, complacency, short memories, and God's care and discipline. Israel forgot God. Amalek forgot God. Naomi forgot God. But God never forgot them. Woo, hit hard, tough. God's care says, even when you forget me, I will still remember you. Won't he do it? Yes, he will. Leaving people, places, things in time of need, and God's care in separation. Abimelech left Bethlehem. Orpha left Naomi. Naomi left Moab. Ruth left the past. God's care is, I will remove what cannot go with you into your next season. This is what this is all about. Because before you get there, he don't want to replant the same old mess. Past, present, and future, and God's care in the timeline. Past, Moab was trauma, compromise, and idolatry. Present, Naomi, grief, bitterness, and emptiness. Future, Ruth, covenant, redemption, lineage, and Messiah. God's care is, I am the God of your past, the God of your present, in your present, and the God preparing your future. Final truth, Ruth 1 looks like abandonment, but it's actually divine orchestration. God was caring for Naomi and Ruth the entire time, even when they couldn't see it. Now, I'm going to put... Last but not least, what I wanted to know. And I wanted to know about Lot, so I'm going to do this and then we're going to be done. Okay. The question was, why did God allow Ruth the Moabite? Because remember, they weren't supposed to marry. Because this was forbidden. This is one of the deepest mysteries, because that's the same thing that the sons did when they went there. So now, the answer reveals God's heart, God's care, God's sovereignty, and God's long-term plan. Let's break it down. The short answer is, God allowed Ruth to marry Boaz because Ruth was not just a Moabite. She was a converted Moabite, a converted woman. And God was using her to heal Israel, to restore Naomi, to redeem a bloodline, and prepare the lineage of Jesus. But that's only the surface. Let's go deeper. The Lord did not forbid Ruth. It forbade unrepentant Moabites. Okay. So, Deuteronomy 23:3 says, no Moabite may enter the assembly of the Lord. But this was about Moabites who remained loyal to Chemosh. That was their God. Moabites who opposed Israel. Moabites who seduced Israel into idolatry. Moabites who refused covenant. It was not about converts, worshippers of Yahweh, and those who left Moab's gods. Those who were embedded or who embraced Israel's covenant with God. He allowed it. That's why. So Ruth said, your God will be my God. This is the conversion language. This is why this was no longer a Moabite spiritually. She was an Israelite, not by blood, but by covenant. See? That was cool right there. So God allowed it because Ruth broke Moab's generational curse. Moab's original, she was born from incest, Lot and his daughters. They were marked by sexual sin, marked by idolatry, marked by hostility towards Israel. Ruth breaks all of that. She leaves Moab, leaves Chemosh, leaves her people, leaves her identity, leaves her past, leaves her generational curse, and she becomes loyal, pure, faithful, covenant-keeping, God-fearing. Ruth is the anti-Moabite. God allowed the marriage because Ruth was no longer spiritually a Moabite. God allowed it because Ruth was the answer to Naomi's prayer. Naomi prayed, may the Lord show kindness to you. Ruth became the kindness. God allowed the marriage because Naomi needed restoration. Naomi needed a redeemer. Naomi needed a grandson. Naomi needed a future. Ruth was God's care for Naomi. Ooh, won't he do it? God allowed it because Boaz was a redeemer. Boaz was a kinsman, a redeemer, a righteous man. A man of great standing, a man of covenant. He was the only one who could restore Naomi's land, continue Elimelech's line, protect Ruth, cover her, and redeem her. God allowed the marriage because it fulfilled the law of redemption. Ooh. See, God's plans are so much bigger than just the marriage. It's about the actual covenant of the two people, bringing the glory for him. So marriage is not about all these things we think it is. It's about giving honor and glory to the one who created it in the first place. Why? Because we cannot be in this if we don't have him in this. Hello, help me out, Holy Ghost, somebody. Whoo, do you get it now? So being married is not about you and your man getting together. No, it's about God being in it and getting the glory out of all of it, because he's the creator of family, of structure, of the whole world. Booyah. And when you leave him out, how you leave him out and think it's going to be good and call yourselves doing what God created good in y'all eyes and without God? No, that doesn't work. He has to get the glory. And until y'all realize that, it ain't about y'all and having sex and having babies and being cute in your little dresses and stuff. Nah, it's not gonna work, because you're forgetting the bigger picture. The bigger picture is the world seeing you married together, living with God, and him being the ones who put you together, keeps you together, and be a blessing as a ministry to the world through him. This is what that is about. It's not just about all these other things, looking cute and having a house. No, ministry and marriage is the same thing. Don't you see? God is our Father. He's our Jesus is our husband. This is and our Father. This and our protector. Right, all in one. God allowed it because Ruth was a part of the Messianic line. This is the deepest reason. Ruth becomes the great grandmother of David, the ancestor of Jesus. God allowed the marriage because Jesus needed to come through a line of redemption. Ooh, Jesus needed to come through a story of grace. Jesus needed to come through a woman who chose covenant over culture. Jesus needed to come through a Gentile. Ooh, to show salvation is for all nations. Ruth's marriage to Boaz is a messianic level destiny. This is what this is all about. To show Satan and all of the cohorts, honey, the evil, wicked ones, and their idolatrous ways, worshiping all these other gods. He is the one and only true God. Y'all already know who he is, what you like to play. You like to play. So every now and again, God got the flex. With this story, he is flexing right now. He done got folks to convert, lead a religion, come on over to this side, worship him, be with honey, and bless them, bless their union, and through them came David and Jesus. Whoo! Now this is what I'm talking about. If you're gonna do it, baby, do it and do it up, do it right. Whoo! Let God get the glory out of it. God allowed it because Ruth was a woman of character. Boaz says, all the people know you are a woman of noble character. Ruth was loyal. She was faithful. She was hardworking. She was pure. She was humble. She was courageous. And she was God-fearing. God allowed the marriage because Ruth's character qualified her. Won't he do it? He said he would. God allowed because Ruth was a foreshadowing of the church. Ruth equals the Gentile bride. Boaz is the Redeemer. Naomi, that's Christ. That's Christ in the church right there. Naomi is Israel. And Bethlehem is the birthplace of redemption. Won't he to break it down? Now we can see it. God allowed the marriage because it is a prophetic picture. The outsider becomes the bride. The Redeemer covers her. The covenant restores her. The lineage continues. The Messiah comes. Ruth is the prototype of the church. God allowed it because Ruth was not unequally yoked. Unequally yoked means different guys, different values, different covenants. Ruth and Boaz, they shared the same God, the same faith, the same covenant, the same values. Spiritually, they were perfectly matched. So all of y'all wanting to find this, you better let God do it, because I'm telling you, He's the only one that can. With these men and women and all of this, baby, can't redeem yourself, can't redeem that man. I don't care how good you look, your coochie is and all this, and how good you, so, your other stuff, the male parts. Listen here, all the money you think you got and how you think, listen, you still just a human being, baby, like everybody else, and I'm going to need you to sit it on down. Please understand. God allowed it because Ruth's story reverses Judges 19 through 21. Judges ends with violence against women. Yes, it did. Tribal division. Ooh, yep. Sexual sin, chaos, bitterness, and death. Ruth begins with loyalty, healing, redemption, covenant, restoration, and life. Ooh, so God allowed the marriage because Ruth's story is the healing answer to Israel's trauma. Ain't nothing like good marriage after all that death and destruction, baby. Ain't nothing like some new seeds being planted and them flourishing, baby. Ain't nothing like some marriage and some children and all that good stuff, baby. They're living that good life, that good old good. God allowed it because God cares for women. Ruth marriage shows God sees widows. God protects the vulnerable. God restores the broken. God honors loyalty. God elevates outsiders. God heals generational trauma. God writes redemption through women. And Ruth is God's kid in human form. Ooh, the real answer, God allowed it because Ruth was chosen. Chosen for Naomi. Chosen for Boaz. Chosen for Bethlehem. For David. For Jesus. For redemption. For covenant, for legacy, for scripture, for history. Ruth was not an accident. She was a divine appointment. That's just what he's doing. Okay, and my last question to this was, so that's why he allowed that marriage. And that says a lot. So when we out here looking to be married and folks talking about kingdom spouses and all this, listen, it's not to say, but what I'm going to tell you is you can't run around here thinking it's going to be about just you and him. This is a ministry thing. See, God doesn't do anything without having some type of impact. It's not just going to be for y'all to walk around and be killed, and to be the T.I. and Tiny of the hood now, or whatever you want to be. I mean, I'm just saying. But and it's not to say it like that. I'm like, listen, God doesn't want, see, the only way it's going to work is if it's going to be different from what the world. See, because if you get married and it's still about, the baby mamas, it's still about, us partying it up at the club, and that's not what God's going to bless you to do. See, if you're going to get married, this is going to be about you, God, your husband. It's going to be about your ministry, your purpose, your assignment, fulfilling it on both ends together with God, working with him to do impact. Why? To let the world see that God created this thing and he sustains this thing. And this is what this is all about. You see what I'm saying? It's not because God created family. And we see what you need to see families held together, loving, covenant. I tell people all the time, somebody got to make it. If nobody is making it in family and relationships, then where does that lead? Where's the hope and faith that someone can actually get married and stay married and be married and faithful? Not just married and not miserable. You see what I'm saying? Like, can we see that? God-fearing, ministry, you're out here outreaching, you're helping people, get off addiction and all this other stuff or whatever it is that they battling. Y'all both went through it and you're going to help folks. This is what this is about. Not just because we want to look cute in vacation. Nah, impact. God wants to make some impact. He wants to shut up these mouths and these spirit and these evil wicked ones. This is what this is about. So now, if you want to do it for that reason and let God use you, and it's not going to be easy, so don't say, we want to do covenant with now, because doing covenant, having a relationship with God, and going and being chosen, because folks going to attack. I'm going to tell you, on each side, from the marriage to the children to the ministry, this is going to be, we got the battle and war and stick together. It ain't going to be we going to jump ship because things just got bad. And whenever things go left, we going to fall apart. No, you going to stick with it because it's not going to be easy. Folks going to want to come against that. I know, because when I got married and when I think about it, things went left from the beginning. Folks didn't want me because I was alone by myself a long time. I myself wasn't seeing myself married and all that either. So I was just like, But when we did finally, was living together and got together and decided to get married and all that, honey, all holy hell broke loose. Family, friends, everything. It just went haywire. And it's because nobody wanted to see us, married and happy. That's just how it go. And then on top of that, doing anything they weren't doing. If they was with somebody and let's say they had somebody and they was with somebody and me and him doing this and they never did that. So now they mad because they never did it. That has nothing to do with me. When you was with your person, I wasn't mad. Y'all was doing y'all, whatever y'all was doing and not doing. So now that we over here doing whatever we doing, why are you mad? You should be happy for me. Finally, I got somebody. I'm not by myself. A lot of times it didn't work like that. Then on top of that, even within ourselves, friends, family, whoever getting in the middle doing stuff, because a lot of stuff, it bees a lot. And on top of that, he was Jehovah's Witness. I was, but neither one of us was practicing. I was a Christian, but we weren't practice any of it. So we were living in sin. And then, like they said, trying to fix sin with sin. So we gonna go ahead and marry whether God told us not to do it or not, because we already living together. And thinking that boo-boo, that Band-Aid was gonna cover it and make it better. So try to fix sin with, we got married to fix the sin of us living in sin. So, I mean, it's a lot with that. And yes, I'm still technically married to him. So it's a lot with that too. And then backslide here and there and going back and forth with men and doing this and doing that. And even, but not being transparent about it, because it happens, drinking, partying, this, that, and the third, going back and forth, because God had to work in me. Even when I got saved, I wasn't, I was working. He's still working in me. It's still things that he has to take out of me. But knowing that about each other and knowing that about the situation, because God knows that you need to know it. And then on top of that, when you put a ring on your finger, it's like, as a wife, you're not out there looking for nobody, but it seemed like that's when they attracted to you more. As a man, too. It seemed like when my husband married me, more women wanted him than ever before. They didn't think about him before, but because they saw him stable and with me and having a family and paying and loving and taking care, they wanted that, and they wanted to take it from me to have it for themselves. This is what happens. So they want to destroy your life because they hateful. They don't have it. They want it. And because you got it, now they want what you have. And it's not even about wanting the man itself. They want what comes with it, what it looks like. They didn't know we went through a lot of things on our own. And then even on my side, with men wanting to be bothered with me. Why? Because it was just infatuation. It was just Satan allowing, people to look at us and be like, oh, well, they together. They ain't rich. They ain't this. We weren't the best looking flyers or all of that. But we was living together. We was doing us. We wasn't thinking about how we looked and all this other stuff to other people. We was living our lives. That was my, he was my boyfriend. He was living with me. We married. We went on ahead. We was already together 3 years living in sin. So I was like, well, what was the big deal? We got married. Okay, we was already living together. So to me, I'm not thinking nothing of it. I'm like, okay, but no, baby, it was a lot. And it was like, well, dad, we was fine as long as we was living over here in sin. But the moment we decided to get married, folks was pissed. Like, how she get married? Oh, she got married before me. I was with so-and-so and I ain't married. Well, why didn't you? I mean, y'all could have got married. That has nothing to do with me. This, and you got to be careful. Because then people are not really happy for you. When we bought a house, had a bill. But we did a lot of things, folks. It's like they were not happy. And this go around, I don't know. And I was like, oh, God brought send him to me. And I was saying that the Lord sent him to me. And I'm thinking, because I was not thinking about getting that. But was that really the Lord? I don't know. Now, does God honor marriage? And I did it because God honors marriage. Don't get me wrong. And I wanted to be in covenant, and he will bless it. And he won't just tell you just divorce, because if that was the case, me and my husband separated since 2019. I could have been divorced, but I've been trying to, and it's been hard. And I'm asking him, is this really what he wants from me? But it's like, I really believe that the people he removed from my life, whether it was family, friends, or whatever, whoever it was, that they're meant to stay gone. Why? Because if he wanted them to be a part of this journey, and it's like, he would have them. He wouldn't have removed them. Or it's just that it's their time is up for whatever reason. He's heard, conversations they've had about me. He knows their true hearts and intentions and motives towards me. So he removed them. Stuff I don't know about. And because of that, when it comes to me moving forward, he doesn't necessarily want that. He wants something new. He wants to start a new thing in my life, which is a perfectly fine thing. So I have to get rid of all the old in order for him to start something new and different, because I don't want those old, he doesn't want all those old patterns and cycles to come back of destruction in my life, and neither do I. So, to move forward is to move forward, and do something different. And I'm here in a season where I'm waiting on him to do whatever he's doing. And it feels sometimes, it is rough, it is hard. And I feel like Naomi sometimes. A lot has gone on with the kids, without everything. And I felt like Naomi, but God is healing me. Whether I ever get married again or not, which I don't really know. I don't really place too much on it. Like I said, marriage is work. It is a ministry. It is something that is not for the weak. You have your own life and your own stuff to deal with, let alone having someone else, and then even having children and all ministry and all those other obligations. It is not what people think it is. So when you think about doing this, please understand, think of this wisely. And it's not to say to deter anybody, because if that's what you truly want, I understand that, but can you handle the weight of it is the question. Your life is not going to be your own. It's not going to be all about you. And so this is what this is. And we see in most of these stories that when it came to the women, it wasn't about them. It was about the man and the children. And so now it's about Naomi, because God's making it about her because everything's gone. And he's healing her heart and restoring and doing all these things. Why? So he can show her that he didn't forget about her. That he saw her sacrifice. He saw what all she went through, with the husband, even making wrong decisions, still loving him, being there, being in Moab, whether because that's where he led her. And then this is what it is. You see what I'm saying? So when we think about these things, we got to think about them as a whole, not just as one area, one aspect. We got to think about all of it. So I hope that this message was a blessing to you. Oh, Lot and his daughters, because I wanted to do that. And then I'm going to end this one out. And we're going to move forward. And God does care. So God's care for us. Now, when it came to Lot and his daughters, right, we misunderstood a lot what went on. Now, it is the root of Moab. So it is the origin of Ruth's people. It is the shadow behind the redemption story. Why? Because Moab was spiritually dangerous. Ruth's conversion was so powerful. Why God allowed it? Well, Lot and his daughters, full breakdown, the birth of Moab and Ammon. What actually happened after Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed, Lot and his two daughters fled to a cave in the mountains, believing the world had ended. Remember, because God destroyed it. No men were left. The daughters got Lot drunk, his daughters, on 2 consecutive nights, and they slept with him. They had sex with him. The daughters had sex with the father. Each daughter became pregnant. The older daughter's son name was Moab. That's where we get them from. And the younger daughter's son name was Ben-Ammi, ancestors of the Ammonites. So these people have been like the Canaanites. They have been thorns in the side of Israel's people, even though they come from Israel. This is the origin of the stories of 2 nations that will become enemies of Israel, idolatrous and spiritually dangerous, historically hostile, but God would later redeem one of these lines through Ruth. Why did this happen? The deep reasons: it wasn't random, it was sin, it was trauma behavior. They had just survived the destruction of the entire world. Their city burned, their mother died, their home was gone, their future was erased. Their father was emotionally broken. They were operating from fear, not lust. Remember, these are 2 girls. They didn't have no one else. They believed they were no men left, meaning for them to get married. So the text says there is not a man on earth to come into us. So they thought humanity was ending. So they were raised in Sodom. So Sodom was sexually chaotic, morally corrupt, spiritually dead. Their worldview was shaped by trauma, immorality, survival, and brokenness. Lot failed as a spiritual leader. Lot offered his daughters to the mob. He hesitated to leave Sodom. Remember when he sent them out there? He lived near compromise. He raised his daughters in a corrupt environment. Their actions reflect the environment that they were shaped by. The spiritual root of Moab. Moab was born from incest, fear, trauma, survival, brokenness, lack of spiritual covering. This is why Moab came idolatrous, violent, seductive, spiritually dangerous. Moab's nations, his national god was Chemosh, was associated with child sacrifice, sexual rituals, and war. The Moabite identity was shaped by trauma and idolatry. Why God allowed this story in scripture? Because God does not hide human brokenness, generational trauma, family dysfunction, sexual sin, lineage corruption. He exposes it so he can redeem it. Lot's daughter's story is not about lust, pleasure, and rebellion. It's about trauma, fear, survival, broken lineage, and generational consequences, and ultimately redemption. This is how it connects to Ruth. Ruth is a Moabite, meaning she comes from this cursed origin. She comes from a sexually broken lineage. She comes from a nation born in trauma. She comes from a people hostile to Israel. She comes from a people God warned about Israel about. And yet Ruth becomes a woman of noble character, a covenant keeper, a redeemer of Naomi, a wife of Boaz, a mother in the Messianic line, and a picture of the church, a symbol of God's grace. Ruth is the redemption of Lot and his daughter's history, or their story. So this is why God allowed the Moabite into the Messianic line. He redeemed the broken bloodline. Jesus' genealogy includes Tamar, who was incest. Rahab, she was a prostitute. Ruth was a Moabite. Bathsheba, she committed adultery. God is not ashamed of messy stories. He heals generational trauma. Moab began in trauma. Moab ends in redemption through Ruth. He breaks the curses. Deuteronomy 23 said Moabites couldn't enter the assembly for 10 generations, but enters in by faith, not by blood. He includes the outsider. Ruth is a picture of God's heart for the nations. He shows that the origin does not determine the destiny. Ruth's past did not disqualify her future. It positioned her. What line of his daughters teaches us about God's care? Even in the cave, God saw them. God understood their trauma. God did not erase them. God did not abandon them. God allowed their line to continue. God planned redemption generations later. God's care is not always loud. Sometimes it is hidden in the lineage. What this means for women today: Lot's daughters show trauma shapes choices. Environment shapes identity. Lack of covering creates vulnerability. Women often survive in ways that men judge. God sees the pain behind the behavior. God redeems what begins in brokenness. Ruth shows God can rewrite any story. God can redeem any lineage. God can break any curse. God can use any woman. God can restore any family. Past, present, and future meaning. The past: Lot's daughters, trauma, fear, incest, brokenness, and Moab. This presents the present is Naomi, Ruth. Sorry, that was the past. Lot's daughters. Present is Naomi and Ruth. Loss, emptiness, return, covenant, redemption. The future is going to be David and Jesus, the kinship, the Messiah, salvation, grace, restoration. God turns trauma into testimony, brokenness into blessing, curses into covenants, and outsiders into lineage carriers. As we see, the men end up redeeming in the future because all of those are men. So he brings the men back from where they were. They were out of alignment. And this is what we need in this day and age. This is Pride Month. I hope y'all are listening. This is God's care for us in our lives, no matter what is going on. I hope that this word was a blessing. I know it was a little lengthy, but I hope that this was a blessing to you, because it sure was a blessing to me. Now, Bruised and Not Broken, like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. I like for these messages to get out there, to be a blessing to other people. Why? God sees you, like it says. His care is still there for you. So, like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel, Bruised and Not Broken. And my link of my Cash App is in the bio if you want to be a blessing to me and my family. But, of course, God is my provider, so I depend on him regardless. But let's just, I don't know. My mind is just gone because this word was just a lot for me. But anyway, it's a lot to digest and to swallow. But you guys, I hope that you enjoyed it. Love you. Until the next one, be blessed in Jesus' name.